Hello everybody, welcome back to Fanblade. It's been a bit of a relaxed week. I've just been giving these a few coats of glue, sanding them flat, give them another couple of coats, sand them flat, and over the course of the week I've built up a reasonable sort of a finish. I have finally filled the grain. The grain on this one was impossible. It just would not, you can't sand it, it wouldn't go flat. It was actually pretty problematic, but I did get there in the end. These are ready to be sprayed. I'm going to use some polyurethane. I like the stuff. It looks good and it sets quite strong and it's good. Now I'm not going to spray them just yet because first of all I want to make a whole lot of sawdust. And of course the last thing you want when you have wet polyurethane curing is sawdust settling into it. So I'm going to set these aside for now while I make some truss rod covers. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to laminate a piece of lightwood and darkwood together, about 1.5 millimeters each, so we'll get 2 layers, and then we'll engrave through the top one my logo, which I'll show you in a second. And that, yes, I'll do it on the pantograph, and that'll give us a nice repeatable logo for all 3 necks. Okay, now my logo is kind of a little thing that I can just sort of draw it with a compass. It's kind of a segmented circle. You'll see that in a second when I actually draw the thing. What I'm going to try and do, because the final item that I'm actually making here is 60 by 30, the truss rod cover, which means the logo has to be 20 mil across, and then I've got some room for some writing as well. I don't know what that design's going to be. I'll figure it out shortly. However, I don't want to make the pattern in MDF because this will only last 2 or 3 goes before, like it's soft. You can carve into it by hand. The stylus will wreck it after 2 or 3 goes. So I want to make a more permanent one in acrylic using the pantograph again. So we're going from something that's 30 by 60 to something that's a ratio of 2 to 5 larger on this one. And then we're starting with a ratio of 2 to 5 larger on this one. As I'm carving this out by hand, any inaccuracies, they get reduced by a 5 to 2 down and then again. So if I'm 0.5 millimeter off on my pattern here, that's going to be so small on the final item that it's just not even going to matter. But I need to actually do some maths and figure all that out. Right, it's calculations time. Okay, so what we're getting is that same miniaturization effect that I don't know the name of, but it's reacting with the size of the cutter, and the dots that I've put in between the initials are too big for the design. In fact, the dot at the end of the eye just looks like it's part of the eye. There's also been a little bit of splintering on the B, and just looking down into the engraving there, and I can't tell that this is a lighter piece of wood underneath. You can't really see it. So probably what we want to do then is just go for a single piece of wood with the engraving in it at a shallower depth, so there's less likely to be splintering, and then I'll fill it with some epoxy or something that's a crazy colour. I'm also wondering whether I need the FBI thing on there because it is fan blade instruments, but also there may be copyright issues. So I think we'll just forget about that entirely and just engrave that on a whole pile of bits of wood. Yeah. Right, we have 4 fine little fan blades there. Now, I'm going to fill them with epoxy glue. I'm also going to colour them with a little bit of enamel paint with glitter in it in the form of nail polish. I have done this before. You do have to watch for bubbles in the epoxy, but I think that happens with any two-pot glue that you try and inlay stuff with. The nail polish makes it set slower. It slows down the curing process, but it will still set. You can sand it to a nice fine finish, and it doesn't leach as much colour. Sometimes if you start mixing things together, then the colour will actually leak into the outer edges of the design. That doesn't seem to happen with the epoxy. It kind of seals it quite nicely. So, mix up a batch of this, paste it all in there, and then we can set that aside and think about spray painting the bodies. And I have made far too much epoxy and paint, so I'm going to start filling this. If you've been watching the series, you'll remember this as my first attempt with the pantograph, and I never got around to filling it with anything, so let's just dump all of this in here and have done with it. Right, and we'll finish filling that with the next batch of stuff I make too much of. What will that be? Who knows? You'd better subscribe to find out. So we come to spray painting. I have got some polyurethane and some turpentine and an HVLP spray gun, and there's a compressor over there. What I don't have is a professional spray booth. I also don't have a mask, because the mask that I generally would use has gone back to my place of work, where they also happen to have a professional spray booth. In fact, that's my day job. For those who don't know, I am a professional painter. What this means is that I can't safely do this at my house here. I'm going to have to take these into work after I've put masking tape around all the necessary bits. Take them to work and spray them. Now what that means for you, and I'm very sorry about this, but I can't film any of it because it's super dangerous to have electronic equipment operating in an area where you are aerosolizing flammable liquids. I just can't film it. So that, sadly, is where I'm going to have to leave it for this week. I'll spray paint these at work tomorrow, and then you'll get to see the results of that next week, and we can see how the finish is curing and whether or not we can actually put these things together. So we're getting really near the end. It's just a wee bit more to do, and then we'll be finished with these, and we can move on to making some mandolins and some other tools. There's other bits and pieces I want to do. I want to make a drum sander so I can get into trying to build acoustics. That's going to be a real learning curve, so hit the subscribe button and climb it with me. I guess that's it for today. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you real soon. Cheers.